Hi, in this Python tutorial we are going to look at something called the while loop. While loops are basically a control structure in programming that allow us to repeat a section of code while a condition is true, or while a condition evaluates to true. So basically we can test a condition, and if that condition evaluates to true, then we can repeat a section of code as long as it is true, and then eventually stop running that code when the condition evaluates to false. So we're going to work through a couple of different examples. For the first example, we're going to basically just create a counter. So what we'll do is create a counter and we'll set it to 0. So an integer variable called counter with an initial value of 0. And what we're going to do is use the keyword while. So we say while, and the condition that I'm going to test here is if the counter is less than 10. So to create a while loop, we say while, and then we specify the condition. At the end of the condition, we place a colon and hit return or enter. And indented below the while keyword and the condition is the code that we want to repeat. And that code will repeat as long as this while loop's condition is evaluating to true, and once it is no longer evaluating to true, once it's false, then the loop will end and the program will continue running the code below the while loop that's not indented under the while loop. So what we'll do is basically we will print the counter value. So we'll print the value of counter while this loop is running and repeating over and over again. Now, with while loops, it's important that if we're testing a condition and repeating the code while the condition is true, it's important we allow that condition to eventually no longer be true, so to eventually become false or evaluate to false, so that the loop can end. Now, if the loop is never able to end and that condition is never able to evaluate to false, then what we'll have is an infinite loop, and that loop will never end and will probably break the program. It will probably eventually freeze up. So what we need to do is allow this condition to be able to no longer be true and eventually be false. So what we can do is increase the counter while the loop, or every time the loop runs, so every iteration of the loop, so that eventually the counter will be equal to 10 and will no longer be less than 10, and this condition will be false. So to do that, we could say counter equals counter plus 1. We could increase it by 1 maybe. Or we could just shorten that code by saying counter plus equals 1, which means increment by 1. Now we can save that code, and actually just to see where the loop ends, we can print a little message at the end. We'll just say something like goodbye. And we'll run this code after saving it. And we'll see when we test this, what actually happens is it prints 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 9 and then goodbye. So what's happening is initially the counter variable is set to 0. We get to this while loop and the program checks, is the counter less than 10? And 0 is less than 10, so it prints the value of the counter, which is 0, and then increases the counter by 1. So now counter is equal to 1. And again, at the end of that code inside the while loop, it goes back up to the top and checks the condition again and repeats. So 1 is less than 10, so we print 1, increase counter by 1, so now counter is 2. We check, is 2 less than 10? Yes, so we print the value, and so on, all the way up to here. So basically, we get up to 9, so we check, is 9 less than 10? Yes, we print 9 and increase that counter, which is currently 9. We increase it by 1, so now it becomes 10. Then the loop will go back and check, is 10 less than 10? No, it's not. So that's the end of the while loop. The condition now evaluates to false. The loop will end and it will print goodbye. We'll continue running the code after that loop. Okay, so that's basically how a while loop works. If we were to delete or remove this line here, or maybe just comment it out so it doesn't run, then what will happen is the program will run and it will start printing out values, but you can see the only value that's actually printing is 0 because we never allow the counter to increase or change in value. It's just always going to be 0, which means that the loop is always going to be running and it's basically an infinite loop. So we're going to need to kill this program. We're going to need to stop it from running because this condition here, counter less than 10, it's always going to be true as long as that value is not changing or increasing. Okay, so let's look at another example here. We could use a string, so we could set a password and we could use a string value for a password. Let's just go with hello, and we can check while password, while input, while user input is not equal to password, then print something like incorrect password, try again. Okay, and when the loop ends, when they eventually get the password correct, we can say something like hello there. All right, now here what we could do is get some user input. So we could say user input equals, and then use the input function, enter the password. Now, we basically check while the user input is not equal to the password, we say incorrect password, try again. But then it's important that just like with the other loop, we allow this condition to eventually change. And actually this is meant to be while the user input is not equal to password. So while user input is not equal to password, we ask them to enter the password and try again. So what we could do is just copy this line here and paste it here. And we can run the code. We can enter in a password like maybe something like, hey, it says incorrect password, try again. We could try hi, incorrect password, try again, try hello. And there we see the loop ends and we see the message hello there. All right, now that's an example of how to test string values in a while loop. So you might see that now that if you're familiar with if statements, then working with while loops is very similar. Specifying the condition is the same as if we were creating an if statement, but the difference here is instead of running the code once like an if statement would, we're running the code as long as the condition is true. All right, now in the previous tutorial we created a little number guessing game where we asked the user to enter a number. They had to guess between 1 and 10, and we would tell them if they got the number right or wrong. And basically, we only allowed the user to enter a number once, and if they got it wrong, they had to close the program and reopen it to try again. So what we're going to do here is use while loops to fix that program. So let's get rid of this code, and we'll create a variable that stores a secret number. We'll just set it to 6. And then what we'll do is we'll get the user to enter their attempt. And actually, if we're going to use the input function, we need to make sure that we convert the string input, or the input from the user, which will be stored as a string. We need to convert that to an integer. Okay, so we're going to say enter a number. Oops. Okay, and whatever they enter will be stored as an integer in the guess variable. Now what we can say is while their guess is not equal to the secret number, we can basically say that was the incorrect number, try again, but we can also put in some if statements here. So we can say if their guess is greater than the secret number, and this will be indented below the if statement, then what we'll do is we'll say we'll print the message, the secret number is lower, please try again. And then we can have an else statement, or actually we'll specify elif guess is less than the secret number. Then what we need to do is print a message saying the secret number is higher. Please try again. Okay, now what we're doing here is basically checking is the guess not equal to the secret number? And if so, then we go and check if their guess was higher than the secret number or greater than the secret number. And we tell them that they need to guess a lower number. And then we also check, so if this condition here evaluates to false, then we go on to check this one here. Is the guess lower than the secret number or less than the secret number? And if so, we say the secret number is higher, please try again. But it's important that we actually allow the user to enter the secret number again. So we can copy this code from up here because we want to give them another chance to guess the number and also allow this condition to eventually become false so that the loop ends. So paste this condition here indented under the while loop. Make sure it's not indented under these if statements because we only want to ask once, and for any time that the guess is not equal to the secret number, whether their guess is lower, whether it's greater than or less than the secret number. Okay, lastly we can print a message at the end of the program. When they guess the secret number, the loop will end and the code will go down to here and print this message. So let's save that and test it out. Okay, so the secret number is 6, so let's enter a number like 9. The secret number is lower, please try again. Let's go with 7. Secret number is lower, please try again. Now let's try something like 5. Secret number is higher, please try again. And now we'll enter 6 and we see the message, you got it. Now, just before we finish this tutorial, it's important, again, I'll just say it's important to make sure that you provide an opportunity for a while loop to be able to end. And in other words, that the condition that you're testing will eventually evaluate to false. So that's quite important. Also, you can nest while loops and you can also nest if statements, which means basically that you could have an if statement inside an if statement, and you can also have a while loop inside another while loop. So for example here where we check if guess is greater than secret number and we print secret number is lower, please try again, maybe we might want to also check if their guess is greater than the secret number but close to the secret number. So we could either combine those two conditions here in this if statement by using the AND operator like we did in the previous tutorial, or maybe we could just have another if statement indented underneath this if statement. So maybe we could say if the guess is less than the secret number plus 1, and we should put this in brackets, then print you're close. So letting them know that they're only one number away from the secret number. So how this will work is basically we check this condition. If it's true, it runs this code here and then comes down to this if statement, checks this condition, and if this is true, then it runs this code. So let's try that out. We'll run it. And we'll enter in 8. And it says secret number is lower, please try again. This time we'll enter in 7. It says the secret number is lower, please try again. And it should actually, so that's not working properly, so let's close that. Should be if the guess is less than the secret number, so less than the secret number plus 2, or equal to the secret number plus 1. So that's actually wrong. So let's try that again. Let's go with 7. It says the secret number is lower. Please try again. And then it also says you're close. Okay, so just like I've done here, nesting the if statement inside another if statement, you can also nest a while loop inside another while loop. So that's also possible. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. In the next tutorial, we'll look at something called the for loop. Thanks for watching.